Hello and welcome to Getting Ready, Studying Science at Adelaide. My name is Adelaide and I'm a professor in plant science here at the University of Adelaide and also the Deputy Dean for Learning and Teaching for the Faculty of Sciences. And I'll now allow Ari to introduce himself.
Thanks, Amanda. Hi, everyone. I'm Ari. I'm from the Student Recruitment and Marketing team in the Faculty of Sciences. I don't have any titles, but I am nice, I think. Maybe. We'll see.
You're very good at your job, Ari. So today, there's a couple of things I want to just sort of welcome you first of all, I guess, before we talk about what the overview is of the session tonight. So first of all, I'd like to acknowledge and pay our respects to the Kaurna people, the traditional custodians whose ancestral lands we host this event from today. We also acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands on which all of you are joining us from today, and the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples that may be participating in this meeting or webinar as well. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging and celebrate the diversity of Aboriginal peoples and their ongoing cultures and connections to the lands and waters of South Australia. Now, it's a really significant transition period for students as you move from high school or even if you're a mature age student into university. So we're hoping that we give you a lot of hints and tips today to get you ready for studying science at Adelaide. First of all, though, a bit of housekeeping. If you could please use the Q&A section to submit your questions, and we'll address all of those questions at the end of the session. So use the Q&A for questions, and at the very end, we'll address those questions. If we don't address them there, we'll make sure that we email you and contact you otherwise. Please, if you are having any technical difficulties, please use the chat, as we've got a team on standby to help with technical issues. And we will be sending out these presentation slides and a recording of the event so you can have access to this content as a reference as you move forward. So let's move to the overview of tonight, given the housekeeping and the welcome is out of the way. So we're going to tell you a little bit about how science is changing the world, why we're so excited that you would like to come to the university to do science. It's one of the most exciting and innovative career paths that you could take, in my opinion, and obviously I'm a bit biased because I am a scientist, but I think it's absolutely great. We're going to tell you a little bit about why, and we're going to hear from a recent graduate on where a science degree can take you. We've got a panel of 4 current science students from across a wide range of our degrees to tell you a little bit about what it's like transitioning to university. We're going to overview the SATAP process and what happens next, and discover some of the support services that are available to you, because after all, that's our job here, is to make sure that you make that transition smoothly to university. So we're here to help. And then we've got the Q&A. So Ari and I are going to tag team through this. So I'm going to talk for a bit longer and then I'll hand over to Ari at different points in time, and our other panellists who are all online as well. So let's have a think about how science is changing the world. And we're going to start off, I guess, first of all, with my favourite topic. As I said before, I'm a professor in plant science. So agriculture, food and wine is central to my belief. But ag and food in particular is really important to the Australian economy. So we are probably going to have more than $100 billion worth to the economy by 2030 is what agriculture is going to be worth. And when you consider the fact that we have a very large population, and it's going to be about 10 billion people on this planet by 2050, then that's actually about 56% more food needs to be produced in that sort of 25, 26, 27 years time. That's a pretty short time period for us to have to more or less double our food production. And so what that means is we have to be very clever about how we do that. And so that means planting new ideas and new seeds, being more innovative in the way in which we do that. And so there are lots of careers in agriculture. We actually have one of our ag students as one of the students who'll speak to you later tonight. We're talking transformative technologies. We're talking about drones. We're talking about using satellite imagery. We're talking about using crop sensors, for example. We're talking about things like decision agriculture, where you use big data to make sure that you are ensuring that any food that is made is actually done in a way which provides environmental sustainability and economic sustainability. We're also talking about things like food technologists and the use of food waste in a much better way. So, for example, we've got some researchers who are looking at the use of potato waste in ice cream, of all things. It actually tastes pretty good.
It is actually really good.
Yeah. And winemakers are having to actually grow their grapes in much hotter and drier environments with the advent of climate change. So having to understand how we can get that to happen is also really important. So biology is not just the ag, the food and the wine. We obviously know with the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic how important biomedical science and biotechnology is for us as well. When we think about biology and the impact it has on life, it's all about the genetic hardware. It's the hardware that makes up why and how we are what we are. And the biotechnologists and the biomedical scientists are using that knowledge to be able to find solutions. And in fact, you know, there's a lot of information on the news at the moment about all of the different types of vaccines, some of which are using genetic codes to be able to, I guess, fight COVID-19. So we're already probably fairly aware. We've had a lot of biology and biomedicine in the news lately, but it's about advanced technology. It's about data analytics. It's about changing things for the better for life, food, fuel, health, and you might be using technologies like genetic modification or stem cell technology. You've actually got the ability to have really big global impact in the areas of biomed science and biotechnology. Another strain, if you like, of biology is animal and veterinary science. And when we think about Australia in particular, we've got a really interesting wildlife. We've got a lot of different types of wildlife. But did you know that we've also got one of the highest pet ownerships in the world with 29 million pets? So there's more pets than there are people that live in Australia. And what that means is that in the next few years, the Australian government predicts about 15% more vets are needed for us to be able to cater to the health of our furry and feathered friends who we all regard as our family members. So animals are a really important part of Australian culture, but they're also important internationally. So we have obviously veterinarians, which are going to cater for that health need, but we also have our veterinary technology degree, or so students end up becoming veterinary technicians, so understanding some of the technology that helps to make pets better, if you like. And then we have animal scientists who are thinking about livestock, for example, and how they're housed, how they're fed, how they're kept healthy and how they're kept safe. And then animal behaviouralists. Sorry, that's a very difficult word to say. So people who work in animal behaviour, and you know, examples here might be using animals like therapy dogs to help with therapy, but more recently, researchers here at the Adelaide University have actually been developing dogs who are able to sniff out COVID-19, and so they've been quite successful in that. If we continue, I guess, now into more of a building blocks of life theme with chemistry, chemistry is all about innovation at the molecular level. So these are the building blocks of everything around us. So can we change them in any way to improve things like the environment, to improve water quality, to maybe do some 3D bioprinting, or to even think about finding some microbes which break down plastic, which we don't really want in the environment anymore. So it's all about making new solutions And you do this by understanding all of those building blocks and maybe changing those molecular blocks as well. Now, we do have a chemistry student later this afternoon, tonight I should say, who's going to talk to us about hydrogen and its use as an energy source instead of fossil fuels, or at least that's what his studies are in. He's going to talk to us about other aspects tonight. Continuing, I guess, this theme of solutions is actually, first of all, you've got to find a secret and what the secrets are. And when we think about the world and indeed the universe, there's lots of secrets out there, and there's been a swathe of discoveries which have been made which relate to the physical sciences or the earth sciences. So things like the very first collision which created the earth, all the way through to interactions between matter and energy. So when we think about earth scientists, this is actually kind of exciting for Australia at the moment, because by 2023, there will be a skill shortage of around about 21.6% by 2023. So that's means we need more earth scientists. And when we're thinking about earth science, these are the critical mineral people, so people who are studying critical minerals and trying to understand how we might use them for things like solar energy. It might be thinking about geology and what happened in the past, and we can use that to then predict what the climate might look like in the future, for example. Continuing that physical world universe theme, then, we can expand this even further and expand our boundaries, I guess, out to space. And physics in particular is really important for things like defence, and we're going to actually hear from a graduate soon who comes from that field. And it's really important for other aspects of life. So when we think about physics in particular, we can think about real-time data, we can think about sophisticated modelling, which might be used to solve many of the problems which we've already mentioned around health and environment, for example. And quantum computers are being funded left, right and centre by the government at the moment because they see this aspect as really important. And of course, the Space Agency being here in Adelaide is important too. I'm going to take this opportunity to also just highlight and I guess boast about one of our professors here at the University of Adelaide, Professor Peter Veitch. He recently won the 2020 PM Prize for Science as part of a group of 4 for the detection of gravitational waves, which is, I guess, you could call it the ripples in space-time that Einstein had in his theory of relativity. So they actually proved, I guess, Einstein's theory of relativity, which is a fairly neat thing to do, and they got awarded for that, which was really great. So to finish up this bit on the sciences, the last bit is obviously environmental science. We have to have nature's back. You know, what a wonderful place we live in here in Australia and indeed on the planet. We've got lots of different environments. We've got seas, we've got deserts, we've got rainforests, we've got all sorts of different things which we need to safeguard. And to do that, science is needed to understand it, but then also we need that understanding so we can manage the flora, the fauna, all of the different parts that make up our natural resources. And there is a prediction by the federal government that in the next few years, there'll be about 14,000 job openings. So there's a lot of work out there, and I think we can all appreciate that. While we're boasting, another person I'd like to boast about is Professor Connell, who won the Eureka Prize with his team for applied environmental research just recently. And this was for research on the shellfish on the reefs and rejuvenation of the reefs for those shellfish. So I guess the reason why I've done that little bit of boasting is we like to have our superstars of science teaching our students as well, so you get the latest on what's happening in that particular field. So you can see there are lots of different fields that I've just kind of covered off on. But I guess in terms of thinking about science, I already mentioned careers, those STEM skills, things like critical thinking and problem solving and ability to communicate really complex information. is in demand, and we have industry shortage. So science, you're in the right place. Science is definitely going to help provide for a career. And I guess some of those careers are also some of the top 5 highest paid jobs as well. So, you know, the money kind of helps as well. And funnily enough, James mentioned that to me before. So when, I guess that's a good segue for me to now introduce James, who's going to tell you a bit about his time as an alumni. So James is at the Defence Science and Technology group, and he did a Bachelor of Science in Space Science in Astrophysics and a PhD in Physics. So James, I'll invite you to turn your video on and unmute yourself and tell us a little bit about your story. Thanks, James.
Sure thing. So hello everyone, I'm glad to be with you here virtually today. So as was mentioned, my name is James Lau. I am a defence scientist now. I'm working at Defence Science and Technology, or DST for short. We are the science and technology research arm of the Department of Defence. So I guess a little bit about me and my history first. Before coming to work at DST, I was a student here at the University of Adelaide. I did both my undergrad and postgrad studies here. I finished high school back in, 2009, so quite a few years ago now. I started a Bachelor of Science in Space Science and Astrophysics in 2010. And after completing that, I did my honours year in physics, and then I followed that up with a PhD with the High Energy Astrophysics group here at Adelaide. My PhD was on unidentified very high energy gamma ray sources in our galaxy. It was pretty interesting to me, at least, and it involved using a lot of data from a range of telescopes and observatories, and then bringing it all together to try and identify and categorize these sort of unknown objects. So after completing my PhD studies, I searched for a place where I could apply my science and research and analysis skills in a practical manner. So defence science and technology was an immediate consideration, and I had heard many good things from previous science students from Adelaide. I applied for one of their vacancies. I got through the process, and I was lucky enough to land the position that I'm in now. So I've been at DST for 2.5 years now, and it's been a great experience so far. I currently work in the maritime division. I do research in sonar technology, specifically in information and signal processing and analysis. So the position I'm in now could not have been attained without the experiences I went through during my time studying science here at the University of Adelaide. I believe that several of the other speakers on the panel are current students, and they'll talk more about the sort of current day experiences. So I'll try not to steal all their thunder. But what I will try to briefly touch upon are the takeaways from doing a science degree that have helped me once I've completed my studies. So of course, there's this domain knowledge that you would naturally acquire after spending all these years of study that we hope that you all will do. In my case, this was physics, and specifically astrophysics. Domain knowledge is always helpful in getting a head start after uni, especially if you find yourself drawn to a profession that is closely aligned with your chosen field. However, this is not always the case, and most of the time, the knowledge that you'll end up using on a job is basically learn on the job. The most important thing that I found, and I was able to learn and develop in my university studies, was how to apply knowledge that I had learned, how to take in information, how to analyze it, how to process it, and how to ultimately make sense of it. So basically, the core of what science actually is. Students often emphasize a little bit too much on knowledge, I feel. What do I need to know to pass this course is something that I heard many a time through university, through my studies. But university pushes you in a direction to not only have this knowledge, but how to apply it to solve problems. And in my opinion, this is what many employees look for, especially those that undergo any bit of research. So the University of Adelaide provided me many opportunities to develop these particular skills. And probably the easiest sort of example I can give was during my honours year. So honours year involved both a difficult coursework component and a major year-long research project. So it's like a fusion of knowledge and application. So I was in real time learning about scientific principles and details in classes, which I would take away and immediately apply to the research I was currently undertaking. So these skills have greatly benefited me now in the defence science. I entered the position I'm in now with very little domain knowledge. So I was up in space and now I'm deep in the ocean. So not that much of an overlap. However, the ability to do science remains, and I've consistently been applying those analysis skills that I honed at university in my everyday work. So if I had one tip to give prospective students, it's this. University is unlike school in that it gives you an amazing freedom to choose and engage in different ways. So take every opportunity you can to engage and then to find what best resonates with you. Remember, the end goal of studying science is not to just become a repository of knowledge, although to be fair, you will have a very deep knowledge about your chosen field of study. The goal, however, is to be able to think like a scientist, to develop critical thinking and problem-solving skills, and ultimately to analyze and make sense of this fascinating universe that we live in. I think that's a good place for me to finish, so I'll hand it back to the organisers.
Thank you, James. That was great. I would agree with you 100%. One of the best things about being a scientist is that you might have this set of core knowledge, but actually the way in which you think and the way in which you analyse things is really important. And it means that you can be quite flexible in your career. And I know myself, I've been flexible in my career in lots of different places and worked in lots of different places as a result of that ability. So thank you very much, much appreciated. Thank you, James. I will hand over now to Ari.
Yeah, thanks, Amanda. So thanks again, James. I think it's really valuable for us to hear from someone who's not only out in the workforce, but someone who's had time to establish a career and had that varied journey. It's a really important part of, we've gone one too far, there we go. It's a very important part of the process is that you won't always necessarily end up staying in the first job. You'll move on and try different things. And that's where a degree from the University of Adelaide really does help. We are ranked in the top 100 in the world and #1 in the state for sciences. We're #1 for graduate satisfaction. You've just met one of our satisfied graduates. I've been working on that joke for a little while, sorry. And we have a 5-star student support rating. So the degree is designed very much to support you through your studies and to help you set you up to the best advantage possible. We'll go into a little bit more detail in a moment. But the first thing I'd like to do is introduce you to some of our current students. So we have 4 students with us today, Maddie, David, Megan, and Stephanie. I won't tell you anything about them. They will introduce themselves. This is a really great contrast for you, hearing from a graduate who's been further along in their career versus students who are at various different points throughout their studies. I will just take this opportunity to remind you that we do have the Q&A function. So if you think of something, go, oh, I really wish I'd asked Megan that question, pop it in the chat. If you want to address it to a particular student, feel free to type their name in as well, just for a bit of help there for us so we can make sure we direct it to the right person. With all that out of the way, I'll invite Maddie to turn on her camera and her microphone, and I will hand things over. Thanks, Maddie.
Well, hopefully everyone can hear me, but my name is Maddie and I'm a 3rd-year student currently studying a bachelor's degree of agricultural sciences. I chose this particular degree because I've been around agriculture since I was young and I really enjoyed it all throughout school. So for me, it was just a natural thing to go into. When I did first apply to uni or started thinking about uni, it was, to be honest, like a pretty daunting task. But I did use the university's resources like Ask Adelaide and the Science and Services Hub, just to sort of get some answers, and they were really reassuring and really settled my nerves. So if you are looking for answers to questions, they're a really great place to go to. But probably the most important day for me before starting uni was attending the O Week, which should hopefully happen in the next couple of weeks for you guys. It was a really great time for me to go actually into the university, get a tour around, kind of get an idea of where my classes were going to be. But the probably most valuable thing I got out of it was actually meeting people who were going to be starting the degree with me. I can't stress how relieving it was walking into my first class and then seeing a familiar face. It was like a wave of relief. It was really good. So I strongly encourage anyone who's thinking about going to definitely attend. It's really good. Another perk that really comes from uni, and I can probably speak on behalf of my degree, is the clubs or associations that are being held at uni. So for my degree, we've got our Agricultural Students Association, and they put on events throughout the year, which are really fun to come along to. So we've got like our pub crawls, our annual agricultural ball, so we get to dress up and go out, so it's a really good day. And we also have our annual sporting event, which is Weight vs Roseworthy, and it's a really good atmosphere and a really good event to come along to. So yeah, lots of good things to come out of uni. But for actually studying science at uni, it's a really challenging but really rewarding area. You get to play with lots of equipment in the labs, and you get to meet a lot of people in industry as well. So it's a really good choice for you guys. Might be a little bit biased, but yeah, science is definitely really good. So I think I've been talking for a little bit too long now. So yeah, good luck everyone, and I hope to see you guys around campus.
Thanks very much, Maddie. Really appreciate your insights. I think it's a great point about making sure that you go to O Week and get to know people. It does make that first week a little bit easier for you, knowing that you've got someone familiar in the room. Now I'd like to invite David to turn on his camera and microphone, and I'll hand over to him. Thanks, David.
Hi, so my name is David and I'm studying a Bachelor of Science Advanced. Now, Bachelor of Science Advanced is an extremely broad degree, and so I've chosen to do a double major in chemistry. I'm heading into my final year now, so I'll hopefully be wrapping up at the end of this year. I chose to do science as I really like understanding the world around me and the reactions that happen in the world on a day-to-day basis. So being able to do chemistry is something that just comes naturally to me. Additionally, the aspect of working in a lab is something that excites me because I don't like sitting down at a desk 24/7. So being able to stand up in a lab and use my hands is another really nice perk. Finally, being able to help the world and make new scientific breakthroughs is also something that comes to mind when I think of science, and something that really pushed me to be a scientist. When I first came to uni, it was a really large shock to the system. The best thing about uni is its freedom and independence. However, that can also sometimes be its definitely most challenging aspect. The first thing that I had to worry about was choosing my major. Because my degree has about 18 different majors you can choose from, it meant I spent about 6 hours just sitting at my desk deciding what I wanted to do. And then once I even decided on that, it took me another 3 hours to figure out how to enroll. And the only way I actually figured out how to enroll was to go to a faculty office and just sit down with the person there. And that was probably the best hour of uni, which gave me so much clarity on where I should be going with my uni degree, because without that hour chat, I would have just been so lost in the waters. Once I got past enrollment, my next biggest concern was definitely getting lost at uni. The campus is huge. And so I just ended up pinning the Lost on Campus app to my home bar. And I was constantly on my phone searching up buildings and finding where to go. Then finally, once you get to class, you walk into this huge lecture theatre and you see
Okay, we seem to have lost David. That's okay. While we wait for him to reconnect, I might invite Megan to turn on her camera and microphone, please. And we'll keep going. So beautiful. Thank you very much, Megan. I'll hand over to you.
Thanks, Ari. Yeah, so my name's Megan. I am, like David, also doing the Bachelor of Science Advanced, but I'm actually majoring in genetics and ecology. I chose it because I love being outside, and growing up I did a lot of camping with my family, but I didn't actually start in that degree. I didn't start in science at all, actually. When I was in year 12, I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do, like at all. I remember spending hours flicking through the SATAC book and just nothing was grabbing me. So I spoke to my brother, who at the time was studying at Adelaide, and I sort of said, oh, well, I want to pursue Japanese studies a bit more. So I went and spoke to the Faculty of Arts, and I actually started doing a Bachelor of Arts in Teaching. And then I got through my first semester and I was thinking, this isn't for me. But I was honestly terrified of starting over again. I thought, you know, I've started this degree, like I should just see how it goes. So I did another semester of arts and teaching, and then I finally went and spoke to the Faculty of Science, and I was like, look, this isn't working. I sat down with them, and like David said, it was just sort of this conversation that brought everything together, and it really helped me figure out what I wanted to do, which was science. So I changed, and since then I've actually changed 4 times, but I've stuck with the science theme. But I think for me, sort of embracing the change of uni and not knowing what I wanted to do has been one of the biggest things. But I thought I'd share with you some things that I have learned looking back that have really helped me get to where I am now. The first thing is just ask for help when you need it, because the lecturers are there to help. They say, ask us questions and let me know if you need help. And it can be really hard to go that first time and get help, or go to the maths center and get help. But once you do it once, you're like, oh my gosh, that was actually helpful. And you'll go back. I guarantee you will go back. But more than that, uni isn't just about your academics. It's also about learning these life skills that your lecturers and your pracs, they're not going to teach you that. So my 2 pieces of advice for you, number 1 would be talk to as many people as you possibly can. And it seems obvious, but for some people, it's not easy to go into a room that you don't know with people that you don't know and just talk to people. But on your first day of uni, I highly recommend that you sit near somebody, don't sit on your own, and just start a conversation with them. Ask them what they're studying and what major they're thinking of doing and why they're doing it. It doesn't have to be anything super exciting, but just making connections with people in your degree will really help you get through it, whether it be having a partner for pracs or for group work, having somebody to get notes off or just bounce ideas off of will really help you. And the same thing with lecturers, talk to them because they have this abundance of knowledge. And honestly, they're just excited to talk to somebody who wants to hear about what they're talking about. And it can be their holidays sometimes. I've had some great chats with lecturers about what holidays they've been on, which have been linked to their degrees and things like that. And then the other piece of advice I would like to say is take every opportunity you can. A bit like James said, one of the best things that I think I've done was I was actually talking to a demonstrator who happened to come up to my table, and we were chatting about what they were doing for their PhD, and I ended up getting an offer from them to supervise me to do a summer scholarship, which is something that you can do after you've finished, I think, your first semester of uni. And at the time, I almost wasn't going to take it because it was looking at seagrass, and I sort of thought, I don't really want to spend my summer holidays looking at seagrass, but I did it. And it was a really good decision to do it because I ended up meeting all these other PhD students looking at bees and arid lands, which was so much more interesting to me. But I also went and got some work in the herbarium, met some really cool people there. And from all these people that I met just from taking this one opportunity, they encouraged me to then join the Biology Society, which has a branch at uni. And then, so I did that for last year. And then a year down the track, I'm secretary of this Biology Society. And it's not something that I ever thought that I would do. It was not in my plan at all when I came to uni to do that, but I'm really glad I did it because I've met some awesome people. And I think just taking those opportunities, if you've got the slightest interest in something and those sort of your excitement and curiosity just even slightly outweighs your fear and nerves about trying something new, go for it, because you will make mistakes because nobody is an expert when they start things. And I think that's a really important thing to remember. But there are people at uni whose job is to help you. So yeah, take the opportunities that you can, talk to as many people you can, and don't be afraid to have to make a change or make a mistake.
Thanks so much, Megan. That's really, really strong advice. You know, it's university is a very different experience to school. You get out as much as you put in. So the more you take up opportunities, the more you try things, the more value you're going to get out of that experience. And I really liked your point about how excited lecturers are to share information and their knowledge. You know, I imagine from their perspective, looking at a room full of people staring blankly at them can be quite daunting. So don't be afraid to put your hand up and ask questions or to have a chat with them afterwards. They're really excited. They're here for you. Speaking of here, it looks like David has been able to reconnect So David, if you want to jump back on and finish those wonderful, wonderful bits of knowledge you were dropping on us, that would be great.
Hi, so not sure exactly where I lost my spot, but I will continue from relatively close to the end because I think that's where I got to. I think the thing that I would most encourage it is joining clubs. Obviously, uni is about studying, but it is a lot more than just studying, especially when you do chemistry. There are long days at uni. So having something like a club to go to outside of study makes it so much more enjoyable coming to the campus rather than just doing your study. Additionally, another thing that I would highly recommend, which I think Megan has also echoed, is joining or going to the Maths Learning Centre and the past sessions. I thought I was pretty good at maths in year 12, but when I came to uni, it was a completely different story. But sitting down at the Maths Learning Centre and having someone just explain it that's done this content over a year ago or just really recently was super useful rather than just hearing it from the lecture, because obviously they're really useful, but hearing it from a student's point of view can sometimes be really useful. Additionally, the past sessions, which are run by past students, is another highly recommended thing that I would do because they give you extra questions and extra tips of advice since they just did those questions only a year or two ago. So yeah, I guess my main takeaway is the university has lots of services and opportunities, but it's really up to you to take those opportunities.
Brilliant, thank you, David. And yes, we're absolutely going to be talking a lot about those support services a little bit later on. There's a huge range of offerings available to you. And I'd now like to invite Stephanie to turn on her camera and microphone. So Stephanie will be the last student we'll hear from today. Over to you, Stephanie.
Hey guys, so this year I'm going into my third year of biomedical science and I will be majoring in biochem and microbiology. I actually left high school 5 years ago and I went into space science and astrophysics. So like Megan, I have jumped around a little bit through uni. Going from high school to uni was super tough for me because I really thrived on the routine and the structure and all of the reminders that teachers give you when it comes to assignment dates and homework doing. So it took me quite a while to adapt. But in that period of time, I learned so much about how I study, what I need, and how to organize myself. My system now isn't perfect, but it's pretty good. And learning about how I study best, and then for you guys, learning how you study best and what you need is pretty beneficial when it comes to uni. It's okay to ask for help as well while you're learning this stuff. Like I definitely had to talk to lecturers in tutorials because I was just all over the place and they were so awesome in helping. And like David said, past sessions in the Maths Learning Centre was definitely pretty vital in that for me. I learned a lot in the physics degree, but turns out I actually really hated physics and maths. But the idea of changing degrees to me was pretty unbelievable because it seemed like everyone around me had picked a degree, stuck to it, and just loved what they'd chosen out of high school. And that wasn't the case for me or anyone in my family, so it made it really difficult to do that. But I did end up changing degrees. And I actually ended up moving universities for a year, only to return a year later when I changed degrees again and came into biomedical science. Adelaide University has been a super amazing place to study. After having experienced another university and the community there, this uni was really awesome to come back to. And it was super comforting in the support and help that I received in choosing a degree and all of that. I had no idea what I wanted to study after leaving that first year. I spoke to the faculty and the future students officers, and they talked me down from a lot of degree crises and helped me settle on biomedical science. I've learned a lot in this degree from, the immune system to rare genetic disorders and how they occur, and I've really enjoyed every aspect of it. But starting university for this time around wasn't as easy as it was the other two times. I started this degree and I became super sick really quickly. I had to talk to faculty and a lot of lecturers because I had no idea how I was going to study and get the degree that I really wanted to get while also dealing with being really sick. The faculty directed me to disability services, and I thought that was kind of an important thing to bring up because they are kind of the only people who have helped me navigate study and illness while continuing through university as best I can. But disability services wasn't just for physical illnesses, it goes for mental illnesses, and also things like ADHD, autism, dyslexia, stuff like that. So it's absolutely worthwhile looking into if that's something that you have to deal with, like me. At the uni, plenty of opportunities to participate in campus life, as well as discipline-specific things. The clubs definitely can't be overlooked, like everyone else has said. They're ways to broaden your knowledge base, as well as gaining friendships. So things like moral support, study groups, stuff like that. It's pretty awesome. The university is also really great at providing opportunities to participate in things like internships and volunteering programs and networking nights. Those have been super awesome throughout my degrees. I cannot stress how important it is to talk to your lecturers because they are not nearly as scary as your high school teachers will tell you they are. I have emailed a lecturer at 2 o'clock in the morning in a panic and received an email back 20 minutes later. So they're pretty good and pretty awesome at understanding what you guys need. My one piece of advice is to just let yourself adjust to university. Things are difficult and there might be a pretty steep character development for you guys, but it will be one of the best ways to learn what you need and how you cope pretty quickly. And it's okay if things change and if your 5-year plan isn't what you thought it would be. It's just important to do things at your pace and not what your family and friends expect you to do.
Amazing. Thank you, Stephanie. We really appreciate your insights there. Again, lecturers are not scary.
We don't bite.
They're not allowed to. It's against the law. Unless it's in food science, then they're required to bite things, but specifically food and not people. Now that I've suitably embarrassed myself, I just wanted to say a quick thank you to all of our students for sharing their perspective. These students are actually mentors that are available in our pre-arrival mentoring program. So in addition to asking them questions today, you will have further opportunities to have conversations with them if there's anything in particular you'd like to talk to them about. But now that we've had that perspective, let's take a big step back and look at what's coming up. So there's been quite a lot already. We're actually already on the end of the second row there on January the 12th with this event. So the next step coming up is the SATAC offer round on January the 15th, and then that is followed by an event that we'll be hosting on campus on January the 20th to welcome you to the university. We'll be having a series of tours. You'll have opportunities to hear from various people within the faculty. We really do encourage you to come along. We'll show you where all of those essential support services are. It's just a great little introduction before you get started through all the processes of enrolling and so on. It's just a good place to ground yourself. So let's talk through this offer process. So SATAC will be sending out offers on multiple dates. The first date is that 15th of January, and you can see down the bottom of the screen, there are multiple dates thereafter. Offers are sent via email to the email address that you listed on your SATAC application. Please don't panic if it's in your inbox. If it's not in your inbox at 9 a.m. but your friend has an offer, it's really normal. They send them out in batches. They will all be sent out by 5 p.m. So don't panic if it's not there immediately. It's on its way. Something that's really important to point out is that you will only receive one offer per offer round, and that's for the highest preference that you are eligible for. So even if you meet the requirements for all 6 of your preferences, you'll still only get one offer for that first one there. If the highest preference you're eligible for is your 3rd preference, they'll send you an offer for that. So it's just important to remember that one offer. You can respond to your offer by logging into your SATAC application. We'll go into that in just a sec. But something that I do need to remind you of is that you cannot get an offer if you have not paid your SATAC application fee. So just as a little bit of handy advice, maybe just jump onto your SATAC application in the next day and double check that you've paid that. And if not, borrow mum and dad's credit card. Didn't say that. In terms of offer responses, there are 6 different available options. If you're happy with your offer, click accept. If you are offered your first preference, SATAC will automatically accept that on your behalf because they assume that's what you wanted to do the most. If you change your mind, you can still update that for future offer rounds. If you're offered a lower preference, so let's say you get offered number 4 and you still really want your first preference, you can still be considered in future offer rounds by indicating that you wish to be considered for higher preferences. If you receive an offer and you do not choose a response that includes wish to be considered for higher preferences, SATAC will no longer look at you in future offer rounds. So it is just important to remember that. If you change your mind or you want to do something else, that's fine. You can rearrange your preferences after an offer round or remain in consideration for something else that's already on your application, but you must indicate that you wish to be considered for your higher preferences. Waiting for another offer won't negatively impact on your enrollment. There's still plenty of time. The worst case scenario is you may not be able to find the exact class time you were hoping for, and even then there may be ways we can help you with that. Now, if you're someone who signed up for our Year 11 results pathway that was introduced this year in response to the pandemic, that offer can still be formalised. If you didn't sign up for it, unfortunately, it is too late at this point in time. So you received an early conditional offer, and that offer has to be formalised through a SATAC application. It can't be independent. So the degree you received an offer for needs to be on your SATAC application. If you're offered a place for that degree, you're all good if it's your first choice and so on. If you put it as third or fourth or fifth and you've got other things above it, just please keep in mind you will be assessed on your Year 12 results, not your Year 11 results. Year 11 results will only be assessed for the degree that you got on your early conditional offer. This is something to keep in mind, but you can still be assessed on your Year 12 results for everything else. Now, I thought I'd put up a list of all of our degrees just to show you the breadth of science. You've heard from all of our students talking about how some of them have changed their minds a few times, started in one area, in one case teaching, and moving very far away from that into a science area. If you get an offer into a degree and you're not 100% sure if it's the right fit for you, please come and talk to us. If you change your mind and you're not really sure you want to do that, we encourage you to look at applying for any of the Bachelor of Science suite down the bottom corner of the screen. So the Bachelor of Science, Science Honours, Science Advanced Honours, as these are really, really flexible qualifications. Each of these degrees actually has 19 different majors and double majors to choose from. In your first year, you can do a combination of multiple different study areas. A lot of students use this as an opportunity to feel out which areas of science they're most interested in. And some use this as an opportunity to try out an area that they've never thought of trying before, but thought that might be interesting to look into. Many students will move from this degree into a specialised degree, but just as many will stay and customise their studies to suit their particular combination of interests. It's also worth pointing out that some study areas, for example, paleontology, are only available in the Bachelor of Science suite and don't have their own standalone degree separately. So if the Bachelor of Science is already on your preferences, fantastic. If it's not, don't panic. You can always add it on later on after that first offer round if you decide this might be a little bit of a better fit with the flexibility. I'll hand back over to Amanda.
Thank you, Ari. So once you've kind of decided, I guess, and enrolled in terms of which degree you're going to move into, we actually do provide a place, and you can see the website there, and I know that it's gone into the chat as well, where we actually have all of our study plans listed. And these are kind of the same as what you would have as a subject planner in high school. And really those science study plans are there to help you understand which courses, electives, units you might need to pick to meet the requirements for your degree. So it's kind of like a roadmap, if you like, to this is what I need if I want to get this particular degree or this particular major in the Bachelor of Science or Bachelor of Science Advanced, for example. So your study plans will help you in that process. In terms of enrolling into university, so once you've gone through the process that Ari's talked about in terms of accepting your offer, you will receive a welcome email from the university, and it will have your student ID number. And you should get that by the next business day. You can then create your university account and access your student email address at that point in time. And if you decide to wait for another offer, you can still create your account, but wait until you have the offer that you want before enrolling in your courses. Okay. When you've accepted the offer you're happy with and you've gone through all of those processes, we're here to basically help you with your study plan and enrolment via Enroll Me, and you can see that the website is there as well. And then there are a couple of things. If you happen to be a student who is mature age, who's ever been to university before, you can actually apply for credit at step 2 on the slide there. Or obviously that doesn't matter if you haven't come to university before, but if you've been to university, you can apply for credit. Step 3 is to look at your study plan, check it and choose your courses. you may want to get enrolment advice, and you might do that through the Sciences Service Hub. And I know that Ari is going to talk about the support that we provide in that space later. And then basically you're ready to get started at university. The other thing that's obviously really important after enrolment is O-Week. And this year, O-Week, and I think it was Maddie who might have mentioned O-Week when she told us about her story before. O-Week 2021 orientation is between 22nd and 26th of February. Now, there are lots of events on different days, and we also have very specific events for all of our students on the Tuesday of that week. And then we also have very specific events for students who go to Waite or Roseworthy campus on the Thursday. But really, orientation is all about exploring campuses. You get to find out all about the services and support in more detail, meet people. And that's the big thing here, is meeting everybody and start to settle into university life. So I can't stress how important it is to participate in O-Week. It's really, really important. So I hope to see you all there. We saw the roadmap before, and orientation is the second last red thing there on the roadmap, February 22nd to 26th, and then university life basically begins on March the 1st when semester 1 starts.
Yeah, it's coming up quite soon, but there's still plenty of things to do between now and then. I just really want to echo Amanda's point about going to O-Week. There's just so much to learn. It's a great time to go and look around the campus and scope out where your classrooms are for those first lessons on the first day, so you don't turn up at 9 o'clock on Monday morning in absolute panic. I'm speaking from personal experience, of course. Really regretted not taking that opportunity to scope out the campus and figure out where everything was. And I know David downloaded the Lost on Campus app. I do encourage you to consider that one as well. So the next thing we wanted to talk to you about was our pre-arrival mentoring program. So this is something that we've introduced for the first time this year, and you've actually already met 4 of the 8 mentors that are part of the program. So the program is really designed to be a very informal opportunity for you to have conversations with current University of Adelaide students and to ask them those questions that you're feeling uncertain about, or to just pick their brains about their knowledge and experience. As you can see from the people you've already heard from, they do have a wealth of experiences in their time with the university. There's no permanent student record that this is attached to or anything like that. It's just for you to have someone to talk to about all those sorts of questions. It might be as simple as, where is the best coffee place on campus? And it might be as complicated as, what should I expect in my first practical? What do I need to prepare for? What do I need to bring? They're really helpful people. They're absolutely lovely and friendly, and they just want to make sure that you're set up to be as successful as possible in your first year. If there's anything they can't help you with, they will refer you on to a specialist, but don't be afraid to jump on there and have a chat. It's basically like Facebook Messenger. It's an instant messaging service, so you don't have to worry about being online for hours at a time. You can send them a message and then check back in a few hours or even a couple of days later. It's no pressure at all. We really do encourage you to use this service while it's still available. It will be available until the end of week 2 of your first semester, at which point we'll be handing you over to our current student mentors as well, which is a really nice segue into introducing you to the rest of our mentors as well. So we've got the 4 mentors that you've met, and then we've also got 4 additional mentors that are available. I'll just quickly introduce you to them very briefly. First is Mariana. Mariana went through year 12, really struggling to choose between maths and chemistry. And then she got to university and found out she didn't actually have to make a choice. So she's ended up doing a Bachelor of Science Advanced and a Bachelor of Mathematical Sciences concurrently, which is basically doing 2 full degrees at the same time. And we help guide her through that process. She's a great person to talk to if you're thinking about crossing some of those barriers. Next up is Ella. Ella is the person to talk to if you're feeling a bit nervous about going into classes in the first week. Ella grew up in a regional town and went from a graduating class of 16 year 12s into a classroom with approximately 500 students in it. So if anyone knows that culture shock, it's her. But she's not only survived, she's thrived in this environment, and we really encourage you to have a bit of a chat with her about it. Then we have Delphi. So Delphi is just finishing at the Bachelor of Science Veterinary Bioscience and moving into the Doctor of Veterinary Medicine. So she's starting year 4 of the 6-year pathway to become a vet. If you're interested in studying one of the degrees at the Roseworthy campus, she's a great person to talk to. Similarly, if you are thinking about taking advantage of the Roseworthy campus accommodation, Delphi's actually a senior resident, has been living at the campus for several years, so she knows all the ins and outs and all the tips and tricks. And she's also very familiar with the Roseworthy campus dogs, so she can tell you where they like all the scratches. And last but not least is Miriam. Miriam is a person who's incredibly passionate about science and really had a bit of a challenge trying to decide what she wanted to do. So she threw herself into multiple different study areas to figure out which one suited her the best. And she's ended up in the Bachelor of Science Advanced doing a couple of different things because she just wanted to do everything. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about what the different types of sciences are and what's involved, she's a great person to talk to. So all of our mentors are absolutely wonderful people. Obviously, you've met the 4 already, and we really do encourage you to have a chat with them. The link's on the screen, and I believe other Amanda has popped that in the chat for you as well. I'd now like to just quickly talk to you about our Science Service Hub. But before I do, I'd like to introduce Rose. So Rose, if you could just unmute yourself and say hello to everyone.
Hi everyone, how you going? I hope you're all well. My team and I are here to assist in any way we can, and I'm sure Ari will go through what we provide.
Thanks, Rose. We just wanted you to see Rose's face to show you that the people who work at the Science Service Hub are real people. They're lovely, they're friendly, and they're incredibly helpful. So the Science Service Hub is your one-stop shop for anything science related. They can help you work out if the degree you're in is the right fit for you, or if you think there might be something else you could try. They're happy to do enrollment advice, whether that's just making sure that you've done your enrollments correctly, helping you work out if you've read the study plan appropriately, or whether that's helping you customize your study plan to suit your particular interests where possible. I really do encourage you to get that enrollment advice. You've heard it from our students already. Speaking from personal experience, I accidentally enrolled in a 3rd-year course in my 1st year and got quite the shock. So it's really helpful getting that support and help from someone. If you have anything that crops up throughout the year while you're studying, so if you're unable to make it to a class for one reason or another, come and see the team. They can help you find another time to make up that class so you don't fall behind in your content. If you start your degree and it's not quite fitting as well as you thought it might, have a chat with the team. They can help you work out if it's particular courses within your degree that is not the right fit, or whether there's actually another degree that plays to your strengths a bit better. They're happy to sit down and talk through all of these options with you. And that's something that's really important, is that they are very personable, they're very approachable, and they're also available to have confidential one-on-one chats if anything is going wrong or if you're having any challenges relating to your studies. They're really here to help you, they're here for you. And I think this is something that you've heard from the students as well, which is that you need to come and proactively seek support. So if you're having trouble keeping up with anything, don't let that accumulate and build. Don't wait 5 or 6 weeks to come and get help. Engage support services as soon as you start feeling like you're falling behind or a challenge has risen. We can help you resolve it a lot faster, and there'll be a lot less work to catch up on if you come and see us sooner. Remember, at school, your teachers spend a lot more time with you so they can pick up on those subtle signs that maybe you're having a bit of trouble. At university, it takes us longer to get to know you, so don't wait on us, come and see us. It's really, really important that you do that. In terms of other support services, there is a huge range available. We have the pre-arrival mentors, and then we also have the 1st-year mentors who transition you over to from the pre-arrival mentors. And these guys will be with you throughout 1st year, helping you get settled in and providing advice. The university has free drop-in centres for biology, chemistry and physics, as well as maths and writing. So these are free support services. You can pop in and see the staff and students that work there and get advice. One really, really handy bit of advice is before you submit your first assignment, go and see the writing centre, or at the very least access the referencing resources on their website. Referencing is very important at university, and sometimes you can't get above a pass grade if you do not reference correctly. So it's just worth getting those resources and checking. We also have peer-assisted study sessions, which, as David mentioned earlier, are where people who have done the courses you're doing a few years ago come and run sessions for you, and you can ask them all sorts of questions, and they can give you their own personal tips and tricks on how they remember things and any other advice they have. We have plenty of other support services as well. We have health clinic on the campus. We have a counselling service. As Stephanie mentioned, we also have a disability service that can help negotiate any accommodations required. And speaking of accommodations, we also have an accommodation service. The last one I do just want to highlight is our careers service. Students often make the mistake of seeing the career service at the end of their degree. Go and see them at the start. They'll help you create a career plan for the full length of your degree, which includes things like networking events, resume writing workshops, job interview training. Go and see them from the beginning, and you'll feel much more confident and much more prepared when you get to the end of your studies. The last thing from me is just a little bit of information about student finance. So the most important thing is that link at the bottom of the screen. There's a lot of information, and we do encourage you to visit the website. We won't go into too much detail now, but I will say if you are an Australian citizen, we will require you to complete a request for Commonwealth support and HECS help form as part of your enrolment process. So you won't actually be able to skip that. Even if you don't plan on using HECS, you will still need to apply for it as a fallback option. For everyone who's an Australian student, we also encourage you to apply for a tax file number as soon as possible. If you don't already have one, you will need to provide that to the university before the cutoff date at the end of March. Just to make sure that that's registered on our system. So if you don't have one, jump down to the post office or jump online to get the forms and get that all started. And back over to you, Amanda.
Thank you, Ari. So now we're going to go to the audience Q&A. I would like to see some more Q&As in there first. What I might do is we actually asked if people wanted any questions beforehand. So we do actually have some questions that came through before the session. So I might start with those. So while I'm asking those questions of our panellists, can I just remind you all, please feel free to put your questions into the Q&A box, and that way we can ask our panellists, particularly if you've got questions for the students or even for James as a graduate as well. So first of all, I'm going to actually ask Ari a question. And Ari, this question is, can you create your own double degree with a bachelor's that's not already listed as a double degree? Can you somehow sort of mould 2 degrees together?
Yeah, it's a really common question we get asked actually. So double degrees are pre-built and pre-approved, and they are all up on the website. So you can't create your own double degree, but you can create your own concurrent degree, as Mariana did, where you take 2 degrees that aren't already combined and then put them together. So you'll need to seek the support of the 1 or potentially 2 faculties that run those degrees to help create a custom study plan. So that's definitely something you should go and seek support for rather than trying to create that yourself. But yes, it is absolutely possible. It will take longer than a standard double degree. We can typically do a double degree in 4 or 5 years. Concurrent degrees may take up to 5 or 5.5 years, depending on the combination.
Great, thanks, Ari. My next question is actually looking through the list here. My next question is actually for Maddie, because Maddie, you've been on all of our campuses, I guess, Waite, Roseworthy, and North Terrace. And the question is, I guess, what is Roseworthy like? I think they're asking a question about the campus. You know, what are the facilities? What's out there?
Yeah, sure. So Roseworthy is probably, if I'm going to compare it to North Terrace, which is where you'll probably start out, it's a lot smaller and a lot quieter, which is really nice. They still have like labs and things like that. That's all still there. They've got a cafeteria and they've also got a science hub. So that's usually where we go to go eat and things like that. But yeah, Roseworthy is where you'll find you'll go for more of your like hands-on learning. So if you're doing agriculture or if you're studying animal science or veterinary science or anything like that, that's where all the animals are. So you can go in there and you doing practicals with them. And we also have Roseworthy Farm. So they also set up trial plots with all the plants, and you get to monitor them over the semester if you're doing agriculture and things like that. So it's a really nice campus to go to. It's got lots of trees, and it's really serene. It's really nice, and it also has a pool if you're into that. So yeah, it's really good.
The pool sold us already, Maddie.
Yeah.
Is it easy to get to?
It's easy once you get onto the highway. It is, if you're travelling from the city, a bit of a distance, but the university does offer a shuttle bus that goes from North Terrace, so that's good to jump onto. Or a lot of my friends that come from the city, they all carpool. So yeah, there's lots of ways to get there, but yeah, it's pretty easy. Basically all the straight roads from Gore, so yeah, it's all good.
So I might just draw something there from what you said, Maddie, which is that the university bus service actually travels between all 3 campuses, so that you have that opportunity to travel between those campuses. Thank you, Maddie, much appreciated.
No worries.
The next question I'm going to ask, I'm actually going to ask Rose, please. Rose, we've got a question here. I'd like to know if it's possible to do my first year at uni in the Bachelor of Science, Animal Science, and then transfer or apply to Veterinary Bioscience the following year.
Okay, so just to answer that question, so applicants who have studied a Bachelor of Science, Animal Science program at the University of Adelaide will be considered on the basis of their GPA into the Bachelor of and was that vet science, did you say, Amanda?
Yes, the Bachelor.
Yeah. Obviously, it depends on your GPA. It's quite competitive to get into, and applicants do need to still apply through SATAC and complete a questionnaire. So it's not guaranteed, but definitely possible.
Okay, thank you, Rose. Okay, my next question, actually, I'm going to, we've sort of actually got a couple of questions which are quite similar, which are around timetables. So I'm actually going to ask David, please, if I may, which is, you know, what does your timetable, so there's 2 parts to this question, David. The first is when and how did you do your timetable, or I guess another way of putting it is what's your weekly university class schedule look like, and you know, how did you sort of work out your timetable for that as a student?
So the way I go about it is I use the online timetable planner. Initially, when I first did it, I went into the uni and I sat down in the faculty office with someone just like Rose, and they walked me through it because, as I said, there was a lot of flexibility and it was quite hard. So I would sit down with Rose because it's important to be in the right courses. But now I just use the online timetable planner. For 3rd year chemistry, it's a very heavy schedule. It's a 9 to 11 lecture every day, and then a 12 till 6 practical every day from Monday to Friday, with 1 day off on the 12 to 6. But in 2nd year and 1st year, it is obviously not as busy, and there is a bit more variety in the schedule. So yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you, David. The next question I'm actually going to take the liberty of answering, which is when we receive our offers, will we also receive a textbook list or a list of items needed? Well, you won't actually receive that list when you receive your offer. It actually depends upon you enrolling in each individual course. So for each individual course, when you enroll, you'll actually see that there's some links to something we call a course outline. And in the course outline, it will actually provide details of what's required for that course. The majority of our textbooks and things are actually online, you know, it's all listed in the course outlines for each individual course. So it depends what you enroll in, would be my answer for that one. Okay, the next question is, what will the Open Science Day have that OWEEK won't? And given that Ari introduced us to the Open Science Day, I'm going to ask Ari to answer that question.
Yeah, so the Open Science Day is a very general introduction, but it will give you the opportunity to meet some of the people who will be teaching you a little bit earlier, as well as to talk to some of our support staff. So we'll also be doing personalised science tours. There is quite a lot of overlap in what we'll be doing with O Week, but in O Week it's very heavily focused on getting you ready to start that following week, whereas for this event, we are mostly focusing on getting you to that point. So looking at things like enrollment. Certainly can go to one over the other. We do encourage you to go to both because of those different focuses though.
Great, thank you, Ari. I next have a question for, I'm actually going to ask two of the students this one, Megan and Stephanie. And mostly because you've sort of had some experience with many different types of courses, I guess, across many different types of disciplines. We've had a question here about how often or how many hours would you be expected to go to campus in a week at all? So I might just start with perhaps Stephanie first, if I may.
It does depend on the degree that you're doing and how you want to study it. Like for me, I really enjoy going to in-person lectures, and obviously that's not a thing that we have this year or last year. So like that's going to be very different. But yeah, in my first year, I'd spend anywhere from, all day to no time at all kind of at uni. And it depends how many pracs you're doing. So if you're doing, like when I was just doing physics, I only had the one prac every 2 weeks. Whereas when I was doing biology and chemistry, I had a 3-hour prac every single week. And then in second year, it was 4-hour pracs and they were every week and tutorials were longer. So yeah, I don't know if I can give like a definite answer on how many hours because it's super different depending on which degree and what electives, what subjects you pick, that sort of thing.
Okay, thanks, Stephanie. Megan, did you have a similar experience?
Yeah, I would say very much the same. Really depends what courses you do. I found, so when I did my first year in my science degree, that my chemistry courses were a lot more information dense and the pracs were a bit longer than the biology ones. But then on the other hand, I had more biology subjects, so I had more pracs for them. And then for me, doing an environmental science degree, there's also field trips. So sometimes during the week when my friends who are doing medical sciences or physics are really bogged down in pracs, I'll have a really easy week because I then have field trips during some of the breaks or over the weekends or some of those sorts of things. So it really depends. When you get your timetable though, you can adjust it according to other things that you have on, because a lot of the pracs and workshops are offered on alternate days. So if you're busy one day and you need to work, you can cram some of your courses into one day, like another day, so that you might have 1 or 2 days free during the week. But yeah, it really depends what degree you're doing, what courses you choose.
Great, thank you, Megan. Okay, keep the questions coming in. We may not get through all of the questions, but that's okay because we'll make sure that we email a response and provide the information, but we'll keep going with a few more Q&A. There's a lot here. Okay, I might actually ask Ari this next question, which is, does the university offer bridging or foundation courses if you have not completed an assumed knowledge subject in year 12?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the first thing just to clarify is that an assumed knowledge course is not actually required for admission into the degree. So if you're thinking of doing this as just a bit of a refresher and a brush up, there are plenty of online resources available. We don't currently have any that we're offering at the moment, but I can recommend a variety of different free resources, including Khan Academy. It is American, but it is a great way just to brush up on those essential skills for an assumed knowledge. If it was a prerequisite, that's when we would really encourage you to either call the university or come in and see the Science Service Hub. There's multiple ways to make up a prerequisite, and it's just going to depend on your individual circumstances.
Okay, thank you, Ari. The next question we'll answer is, do the study plans accommodate for travel? For example, if you have classes at both Roseworthy and North Terrace, will some of those classes be on the same day? I might answer this one, given that I teach across all 3 of the campuses. We actually have all-day timetabling at Roseworthy and Waite to make sure that students are actually catered for in terms of that travel. So you don't have any issues with having to travel because you'll always be in the one place. You'll only be on Roseworthy on one day, or only at North Terrace, or even only at Regency if you're in a food and nutrition degree. So no issues there.
And just to add on that very quickly, there's also a 10-minute gap between each class. So even though you're scheduled for an hour, there's a 10-minute gap. So you've got enough time to duck to the loo and go to the next class as well.
Okay. I've got another question for you, Ari.
Sure.
Should we add courses and such to our timetable before or after accepting offers?
So you can plan out your timetable in advance, but you will not be enrolled in those courses. You cannot enroll into a course until you have accepted an offer and set up your account, and then you can officially add them. So the system you enroll on is called Access Adelaide, and there are a variety of other resources such as the course planner where you can play around and try and work out a timetable, but it's not officially an enrollment.
Thank you. I don't think any of our students lived on campus, did they? So the question about living on campus, we'll get back to. One of our mentors who Ari mentioned did that, so we'll ask her to answer your questions there, what that's like. I'm going to take this one because it's probably the elephant in the room. How much of this year will be online due to COVID? So we actually have a very, very strong belief in the Faculty of Sciences that, you know, science is practical skills related. And so wherever possible, we are making sure that we have face-to-face delivery, particularly for practicals, because you can't learn practical skills online. And what that means is that we've changed the way in which we deliver some of our practicals. Now, some of them are online because you don't actually need to be face-to-face to do them, but the majority of them, I'm happy to say, we are running with social distancing requirements and doing everything that we need to. So there are plenty of opportunities to learn face-to-face in a science degree. So Rose is not online?
No, she's dropped out.
She's dropped out, okay. Sorry, we've got so many questions here. The next one, which I might also ask Ari, is how do I register for OWIC?
Yeah, so once you've got your student account and your email set up, you'll be sent invitations to the specific day that you're going to be involved in for OWIC. So you'll get OWIC overall and then the science specific OWIC. Anything that does require registration will be there. Because of contact tracing, we do have to be a little bit more stringent with getting people's details than we would have in the past. So there'll be plenty of information and instructions in there for you, so you don't have to worry about it. Just make sure you keep an eye on your student emails.
Sorry, we've got quite a few questions which are very specific for specific degrees. So we'll make sure that we answer those via email. So I think most of the rest of these, we've got a question here about how do you set up a student email?
Yeah, so as Amanda said earlier, within about one business day of you accepting an offer, the university will email you on your SATAC email address your student number and password, and then that way you can go in and it will guide you through an account setup process, including activating your student email account. From there, you can just sync it to your phone as standard. So that's all good. Now we've got a few from anonymous people here. So as we're sort of getting towards the end of our time, if you do have more questions, please make sure you attach your name to them. Otherwise we won't have your email address, but we'll try and blitz through these anonymous questions.
Yes. So the first one of these is just wondering, is there a way to access the course materials before we start uni? or any other way to start familiarising ourselves with content? Well, once you've enrolled into a course, you'll have access. You can also look at the course outline, which will tell you what the learning objectives and what the teaching activities are. But once you've enrolled into a course, you're actually able to access the online learning system here at the university, which we call My Uni. And so you'll actually see your course on My Uni, and you'll be able to see what content is in there. Now, most the course outlines will actually provide the details about textbooks or whatever other materials that you need, but you will also find that in some cases, usually the week before or 2 weeks before, the My Uni course will be live. Don't worry if it's not live until just before semester, but the course outline will help you in that place.
And it's just worth pointing out that the course outline is a publicly visible website. So even before you get your offer, you can go and have a look at it. Just keep an eye on it and don't get too excited and buy all your books, because it does usually get a little bit of an update in the coming weeks. So just keep an eye out for that.
So I've noticed the question about living on campus is asked by an anonymous attendee. So I guess we'll try to give it a go. But it says, how much do you recommend or recommend against living in the uni accommodation based on studying and dealing with travel times, not quality of accommodation? Well, I guess we have the Roseworthy accommodation. It's on campus. You probably only need to walk for about 2 or 3 minutes and you're in the lecture theatre. So I guess from that point of view, it's quite good. And I know from talking to the students that, they enjoy the community and the sense of community in doing that as well.
And in terms of the options around the North Terrace campus, while there is no accommodation on the North Terrace campus, there's options within very short walking distance, either University of Adelaide only or organisations that we can recommend. It's all based on the experience that you're after. I lived an hour away from where I studied, so I used my time on public transport to catch up on my classes. So sometimes I might have only had a day where I only had 2 lectures. So instead of going in person, don't judge me, Amanda, I actually downloaded them onto my phone and listened to them on the train to and from on other days, just to make my transport time work for me. So it's a very personal situation. It just depends. If you want that really collegiate experience, it's a great opportunity to live on a campus or to live at one of the residential colleges. But you can make your transport time work for you as long as you don't get motion sick. And please don't do any of the things I just said.
Thanks, Ari. The next question is quite specific, but I'll change it into a less specific question, which is, how do you find more information about any of the degrees? If you go to the study plans, that will give you the information for those degrees. So I'll leave that short and sharp because I realise that we're starting to run towards the end of our time. The next question is choosing a more general first year course. Is choosing a more general first year course better for someone who's unsure about what they want in their career? For example, would you recommend a Bachelor of Space Science and Astrophysics, or be more general with just a Bachelor of Science? I think Ari mentioned before that the Bachelor of Science is really good for those people who are not quite sure where they want to head. So I think that would be my advice there.
Yeah, and look, if you start in space science and astrophysics and it's not quite the right fit for you, depending on when you come and see us, we can either immediately move you over into the Bachelor of Science, or after your first semester, you can move across as well. So there's always options. Go for what you feel is where you want to start. And if it's not quite the right fit, come and see us. We'll help you out.
So we've got a number of other anonymous-based questions which are around things like whether or not there are electives in my degree. I would suggest, again, make sure that you look at the study plans and that will give you that particular information. I think, and I'm really sorry for those of you who wanted an answer right now, I think we're going to have to probably wrap it up, because most of the questions now are actually about vet science and transferring to vet science and being in another state and whatnot. So we'll make sure that we get those answers to you via email. So don't despair, you'll get an answer. May not be tonight, but certainly tomorrow you'll have an answer for those of you that have sent us a question in. So thank you very much for sending those questions in.
I'll just quickly jump in. If you did submit a question anonymously and we didn't get to it, please make sure you use the email address on the screen. The faculty.sciences@adelaide.edu.au. We'll be keeping a close eye on that in the morning and double checking the email addresses against the registration list. So we'll prioritise you guys in the morning. So just make sure that we can get back to you.
Great, thanks, Ari. So I guess that leaves me to kind of close today. And look, make sure you contact us if you've got any questions. And as Ari said, we've got the details up there. And I'd just like to probably just highlight a couple of key points I think that came out today. One is, you know, science is a great place. It's great for a career. You've got lots of ability to move. And I'd like to thank James for his insight to what it means being a graduate, and also to the students for their experience in being at the university. And I think the key things that are highlighted by all of them is that essentially, you know, academics don't bite. We're here to help you. So are all of the support services. So Rose and her team are here to help you. The mentors are here to help you as well. University is all about life skills. It's all about the fact that, you know, you've just got to jump right in and find out all about everything. You know, there's clubs, there's societies, there's lots of opportunity. And I think the key, there was a word there that one of the students said, which was community. And I like that word because we are a community. So I'm looking forward to welcoming you to our community as a sciences student. Make sure you ask questions if you've got any, and good luck, with fingers crossed, for the offer round on the 15th of January. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.